Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very empowering show coming right up with special guest, Hollister Rand, and she's here today to share with us her new book, Everything You Wanted to Know About the Afterlife But Were Afraid to Ask. Now, Hollister is an international renowned medium, author, and speaker. She provides specific messages from loved ones in spirit with feeling, heart, and grace. Hollister can see and hear spirits as well as get a sense of their personalities and emotions. During the last 25 years plus, her unique abilities have provided comfort and healing to tens of thousands of people worldwide. So let's welcome to the show, Hollister Rand.
Well, thank you so much for having me on this fine day.
Oh, do you know what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book? I have to ask you, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I get asked questions about spirits, spirit communication, the afterlife, what the afterlife is like every time I do an event. And so over the years, I've just collected these questions. And this is kind of a compilation of the most popular questions that I get asked. And what I found really interesting is that the most profound questions and the most heartfelt questions were asked after events when people came up to speak with me. And these are the questions that people really want answers to, but were afraid to ask. So that is where the title of the book came from.
Well, I love the title, and you're so right. There's so many questions out there that people are like, okay, how does this all work? How does it, are my loved ones okay? Are they safe? Are they watching over me? I'm sure you get all these questions all the time.
Yes, I do. And the book's release around the time of great suffering in this country and around the world is really an answer to that cry out of, I miss my loved ones. How can they be with me? I wasn't able to be with them when they passed. All of these questions and all of these fears are answered in the book.
I love that. So for our listeners that are new to you, why don't you share a little bit about your background, your journey as a medium?
Well, I didn't ask to be a medium. In fact, as I was growing up, that wasn't even a career choice. So I started out following the love of my life, which was music. And so I became a musician. Little did I know that the frequencies of music and the sound of music would begin to attune me to the voices of spirits. So frequency in my work is very important. So I work at the frequency of love. Another love of mine was drama. So I also was on the stage as a youngster and through my life. And little did I know that would set me up for being able to speak in front of large groups of people without any fear whatsoever. And then the third love of my life was English. So in college, I was an English drama music major. And little did I know that English major and that love for words and writing and expression through writing would allow me to write books. And this book is my second book. So I am delighted to be able to use all of those early experiences in my life to be the medium, the accessible medium that I am today.
I love that. It looks like everything that you've done has brought you to this place, with the education, the background that you have. And, I've got so many questions for you. I'm sure you get this all the time. In your book, you talk about there's a difference between ghost and spirit. And I was really surprised by that. And I'd love for you to share that with us.
Well, most people, in fact, there's a commercial on television which makes jokes about that. Oh, people say you're a ghost. Oh, people say I'm a spirit. And, so there's this understanding or thought that ghosts and spirits are the same thing. Now, some people may disagree with me about this, but I look at ghosts as being spirits with a bad attitude. And the reason that I say that is when I started out, trying to understand my innate connection with the spirit world or with the unseen world. It started out with those spirits who were very, very attached to the earth in a way that was very dense. They were easy to see. They were usually terribly disgruntled and upset about things that had happened in life and wanted everybody to know about it. And I began to think of those spirits as ghosts, the hauntings. And then as I became more attuned and understood that there were different types of spirits, I decided to work with only loved ones in spirit at the frequency of divine love. So for me, that divided the disgruntled spirits, the ghosts, the ones with an attitude, with those who have our greatest and best interests at heart at the higher frequencies. So the difference between a ghost and a spirit is a ghost is self-motivated, and a spirit is motivated at the frequency of love for the greatest good of all. That's how I see the difference.
So how is it every morning you wake up? Are you surrounded by a lot of spirits that are around, just, waiting for you to start your day? What is it like for you?
Well, fortunately, I have become clap on and clap off over the years, and have been able to teach many others how to be present and connected to the spirit world without being accosted by every spirit that's out there. So when I used to go to bed at night, there were spirits in the hallway coming up the stairs. There were spirits in my room. Some I knew, some I did not. Some were wanted, some were not. And so over the years, I have learned how to calibrate that. And when I wake up in the morning, I am no longer surrounded by spirits because they know that I live in service to putting they and their loved ones together. That is what I do. So I wake up in service. That is my first thought, knowing that the spirits will figure out the way to make that happen, and that's not my job. So I just pretty much show up in the day, and then and things happen. So I think of myself as a catalyst, a spirit catalyst in a way. But I let them do the work. I let them set things up.
I love that. It's interesting because I think a lot of people are afraid to open that door because they are thinking, gosh, I'm going to be so bombarded if I do. So it's nice to hear that you can set boundaries and have those work.
Oh, really important. And that's one of the first things that I teach when I'm teaching workshops and mediumship. I very much help people set boundaries in their lives and figure out how to set their calibration with the spirits so that they, I teach people how to activate their GPS to the spirit world so that they are going to only the good places with the good spirits, with those who want to help and be of comfort.
So on that note, how can spirit communication help those who are seeking some type of healing?
Well, that's an interesting question because there are many, many types of healing. There's physical healing, emotional healing, mental healing, spiritual healing. So that's one of the reasons why I let the spirits decide what is required in every session, in every workshop. I do not predetermine what the healing is going to be because there's no way I am to know that. So when I show up and the spirits show up, they understand what is required. And especially in these extremely difficult times where so many people are leaving the planet at once, worldwide, where we are understanding how we are connected in ways that we never perceived before. So what I'm discovering and what I think my clients are discovering is that connection goes beyond what we could have imagined. So when I had a group online, I do messages events online because these days it's difficult to get large groups of people in a room. I found it interesting that one sitter's aunt came for a visit and her father came for a visit. Now, she never knew her aunt, but her aunt had died of pneumonia. And this aunt came forward to let her know that she was helping those who were suffering in hospitals and those who were suffering with pneumonia, as she did, because she died from pneumonia. And her father showed up in his Navy uniform and said he was helping sailors and he was helping Navy and he was helping ships that were going to be supporting those who were suffering with the virus, and that he came from a generation that served their country in World War II. So that kind of healing, we don't even understand how broad that is, that the spirit network that we are directly attached to is reaching out and helping people we don't even know. And that's why I can't understand how profound the work is that I do. I just do it.
Yeah, you just show up and be that catalyst that you're talking about. It's interesting. I think a lot of times people expect spirit communication to be a certain way. What is it like?
Well, boy, in the emails that I send out to clients who want to book a session, I will say it is best to come with anticipation, not expectation as to who's going to show up and exactly what they're going to say. In fact, this woman who is part of the Messages event online, when her aunt showed up, she looked at me and said, and in front of everybody else who was online at this event, she said, "I didn't know my aunt. She died before I was born." And, the subtext of that was, why would I want to talk to her? So I suggest to people that they also just show up, because rarely are we disappointed by who shows up and what they have to say. Sometimes the spirits know better what we need and what is required than we do ourselves.
So does spirit communication happen in the same type of manner where you get either clear, like a clear communication back and forth? Is it sometimes where they're giving you hints? What is it like?
Well, it depends on the spirit, frankly. Some spirits are very good communicators, and those are almost always spirits who, on the earth plane, were really good communicators. I hear spirit really clearly. So I'll hear names, I'll hear dates, or they'll show me dates on a calendar. So they will give me very specific information. Where it can get a little dicey is that the spirits present everything in the eternal present moment. They don't talk about things as though it's in the past or the future. They present everything as though it is happening now. So there are times when I will say something as though it's happening now and find out, oh no, that actually happened 20 years ago. Or the person will say, I don't know about that. And then I'll get an email, oh, this 2 years later. And I'll give you an example. A woman came to me and her sister who had passed talked about twins in the family. And this girl said, no, we don't have any twins. 2 years later, she was pregnant with twins. Now, it's not that the spirits are talking about the future or predict the future in that way. But if the energy is already going that way, and if there are contracts with the universe that are in force, they can see those things and mention them.
That's so interesting because there is no, time's linear. So when you look at it on the other side, I guess it all is happening then.
Well, where it's helpful and sweet in some ways is when an ex-husband shows up and says, husband. So he comes as a husband, and then the woman will say to me, oh, no, he's my ex. And I will say he doesn't see himself that way, because as he comes at the age at which he met you. He comes at the age at which your love was at its apex. So it's really interesting how relationships can even be healed by approaching them in the present moment as they were in our past.
So I'm sure that you've communicated with thousands of spirits. What is one interaction that's really stood out for you?
Well, what I've discovered is I cannot determine what are the most important or valuable messages. That is not mine to determine. It's almost always the sitter. I can say something that seems completely innocuous and has no meaning to me, but to the person, it means everything. And I'll give you an example of that. I was doing a large event and came to a lady because I saw a young man standing next to her in a Spider-Man costume. And she broke down and cried. She said, that was my boy's favorite Halloween costume. Now, had I held back and thought, why on earth am I seeing that? That is insane. Or another time, I was hearing in my ear a song about Peter Pan that I just started singing. And it turns out the young man's name was Peter, and they used to call him Peter Pan. Now, there is no way that I can know how important those little tidbits are to parents who have lost children, or to spirits who want to make clear that they are who they say they are. But I think one of the profound, and actually, it's so meaningful each and every day. It's hard to pick one. But there was an encounter with a young man who had committed suicide. And at the end of sessions, I allow for questions. I like to hear what the spirits have to say first, because often questions are answered. I don't like to be prompted. But in the end of the session, I said, do you have any questions for your son? And she said, yes, Brandon. Why did you do it? And I thought, oh boy, what kind of answer am I going to get? And I sat there, and the answer he gave me was actually a question. Would there be any reason good enough? And she said, no, Brandon, there would be no reason good enough for you to have taken yourself from me. So in that moment, there was the understanding that there are some questions that we may not have answered here, because they are beyond our understanding here on this earth plane, when what we really want are our loved ones with us. And that's why I think those who have passed with suicide make a supreme effort to return and to be with us and start the conversation again.
Yeah, because there's so much pain that's left with that. So can anyone learn to communicate with spirit?
Oh, I believe we're all wired. I believe we are all wired to communicate with the spirits, whether we know it or not. So that's why I teach classes for people who aren't even intending to be a medium, but just want to feel more connected with loved ones. And the book, Everything You Wanted to Know About the Afterlife, But Were Afraid to Ask, also has in it meditations, suggestions, things that you can do to get connected to your own loved ones and to feel guidance of those you love in your life. When I get up in the morning, as we discussed, I put myself in service. I don't necessarily see my own spirits guiding me every minute of the day, but I walk in confidence that they are. Because things happen in my life that, if I were a betting woman in Las Vegas, I would think, what are the odds of that? How could that possibly happen? So those are synchronicities in life. And that is how we know that our loved ones are with us, that our spirits are working on our behalf, because things begin to occur. And links begin to occur, and people show up in our lives, and things have meaning that wouldn't normally have meaning. And we think, what is the likelihood of this series of events occurring? That shows us that spirit is working in our lives.
Well, how beautiful is that? And I know for our listeners that are tuning in, they probably are going, gosh, okay, so what's a tip that I can use that will help me directly connect with my loved ones in spirit?
One of the easiest ways to get connected and be connected is to live in gratitude and to be quiet. Now, in these difficult days, it might seem as though this is antithetical, that we need the spirits the most, but what do we have to be grateful for? I would say find anything to be grateful for, because when you do, you acknowledge that your happiness isn't totally based on yourself, that there are things outside of yourself. So when we are grateful for first responders, we recognize that there are those who are helpers. When we live in gratitude, that's a welcoming energy for the spirits to work with. When we are sitting in anger, and anger that's associated with grief. Why did you die this way? How could you leave me? I wasn't able to be with you. That is more of an energy that's difficult for the spirits to work with. So gratitude. And the other thing is, one of the biggest complaints from the spirits is, how do we get a word in edgewise? Everybody's asking us for everything. I want to know you're here. Let me know you're here. And then no one stops long enough to allow an answer to arise. Well, many of us are being forced into quiet and retreat right now. So this is actually the perfect time for us to get quiet and to be grateful. And in that, you will automatically be connected with not only your loved ones in spirit, but with all spirits who are working on behalf of you and this planet.
So what is the afterlife like?
Well, the afterlife, I get asked this all the time. The afterlife, what it's like depends on who you're speaking with. So at a large event the other day, online, of course, there was a father sitting in spirit, sitting in his favorite chair, watching the news. Well, that's what he used to do when he was here on this planet. There was an uncle who was smoking a pipe. There was a mother who was playing bridge with 3 of her friends who had also passed. So, you might think that the afterlife, given those tidbits, are part casino, part, den. But the truth is that we can be who we are, all that we are, with the people that we love, doing the things that we love from memory in the afterlife. So that's the good news. There are also some things that I hear spirits say over and over again, that it's a world of thought, that as we think things here on the earth plane, in the spirit world, they think of those things as being done. So when a young man in spirit said to his mother, thanks, Mom, for the bench, for the memorial bench. I know it's going to help many people. She said, well, I'm looking at the blueprints for this bench. It's sitting right here, but we haven't built it yet. Well, when we think about something, to the spirits, it is done. So if you're thinking of doing anything on their behalf, they know it. So it's a world of thought and connection through thought and love. So we can send those we love in spirit love from our hearts, and they will receive it and they will return it. So love is something that goes back and forth from here to those in the afterlife all the time. So the afterlife is a world of constant communication 24/7. We don't have to worry about missing something from loved ones, because just as we have SETI here on the earth plane, where we're beaming things, we're beaming information out into the universe, wondering if someone can hear us, the spirits are always beaming things to us here, wondering if anyone's going to listen.
Mm. Well, and, it's interesting, since they're so connected with our thoughts, they probably have like a front row seat to what's going on all the time.
All the time. Now, that being said, spirits at the frequency of love are not invasive. So I just want you to know, they're not watching you take a shower. They are not listening to every thought you have. They are keyed into things that pertain to them. So if you think of them by name, or you think of them in any context, they receive that. And as I mentioned, the father who was in the Navy, of course, his daughter had been thinking about him. And other people in the Navy were asking for help. I'm sure, and he heard that help and anything to do with the Navy and the service that he loved when he was here on this earth plane, he would receive that kind of information and those updates. It's kind of like having notifications on our phone. If we like an app or we have an interest, we can get notifications on our phone that are of particular interest to us. The spirits are like that in a way. So if there is something that keys into their energy, their lives, their loved ones, their network, they get notified.
So how about animals? What is animal communication like for you?
Well, I originally wanted to be an animal communicator. I didn't set out wanting to be a medium, truly. But I found that the animals who were showing up for me were animals in spirit. So since that time that I first discovered that animals and people are together at the same frequencies, that was a shock to me because I thought, there must be an animal kingdom and there must be a people kingdom. Well, that's not true. And I discovered that when a bald man in spirit showed up with a bald dog. And it turns out it was a grandfather who was there with a dog who had lost its hair due to a skin disease. And it was a dog within the family. And once I saw grandfather, bald dog come together, I thought, well, wait a minute. I've been looking at this incorrectly. And since that day, animals and people have been coming together all the time. And I love it. I love animals. First of all, they're very funny. They don't hold anything back. And they have access to our lives. We tell our animals everything. We tell our animals things that we don't tell other people about. And they see us in our most vulnerable moments. So we don't have to pretend with our animals. And so in spirit, they certainly don't pretend with us. They say things exactly as they are. And that's what I love about animals in spirit.
So what is something that you want readers and our listeners to take away from your book?
Well, part of the takeaway is going to be, what are you coming to the book asking? So if you are asking to understand your own connection, the book will give you that. If you want to understand sort of how spirit communication works in general, the book will give you that. If you want to stick your toe in the water, the book will give you that. If you want to know if your loved ones are with you or if you will be with them again, the book will talk to you about that. If you want to understand where God is in all of this, the book answers questions about that and our spirituality. So the book covers many, many, many subjects because I'm answering many, many, many questions. So that's one of the reasons I designed the book the way I did, which is to have questions where you can go from question to question or subject to subject. It's really flexible that way. So if you have questions just about one subject, you could read that chapter. But if you want to know, how do loved ones communicate with me, or how can I be more attuned to them, you might read answers in different chapters that have to do with that. So each chapter has a lead to other questions that pertain to that answer or that question. So you can navigate the book in a lot of different ways.
That sounds so great. Well, Hollister, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community?
Well, I am so accessible. I'm a working medium. I'm online. I'm on Facebook. My website is hollisterrand.com. I have a YouTube channel. I'm on Instagram, Pinterest. So just know I'm easily found.
Oh, great. Well, Hollister, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you, Hollister. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and, of course, to talk about your new book, Everything You Wanted to Know About the Afterlife But Were Afraid to Ask, which is a #1 bestseller on Amazon. So the book's on Amazon, it's on Kindle, available at Barnes & Noble and select indie retailers. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just what moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Friday and Saturday at 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.